Start then. Hello everyone, and welcome to the second webinar of the ICUCH webinar chain. The first one in 2021 is for us a special year because this year, as you all know, is the 20th anniversary of the 2001 Convention on the Protection of Underwater Cultural Heritage, and we have an agenda that is very, very busy during the whole year. As you saw, there are different speakers, members of ICOMOS that will be speaking to all of us during the whole year. Every month we have some speakers talking. In February we will have Marc-André Vernier talking about the Arctic. But today we have two of the most important speakers that we have that will inaugurate this year. And without further ado, we will start with the webinar of today. So the first speaker of today is Dr. Lucy Semaan. She's going to talk about maritime archaeology in Lebanon and the recent initiatives by the Honor Trust Foundation in the country. Lucy Semaan is the Honor Trust Foundation maritime archaeologist in Lebanon since 2019. She's been involved in archaeology since '96 and has participated and directed many different international maritime and terrestrial archaeological surveys, geophysical surveys, etc., in Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, Cyprus, and Saudi Arabia. She also taught and lectured in maritime archaeology in Lebanon and abroad. She holds a bachelor's degree in arts and archaeology from the Lebanese University, a master's degree in maritime archaeology from the University of Southampton, and a PhD in Arab and Islamic studies with a focus on maritime archaeology from the University of Exeter. From 2016 and 2018, Lucy was awarded the 3-year Honor Trust Foundation funded postdoc fellowship at the University of Balmain, Lebanon. So, Lucy, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Right. Sorry, I had a power cut. So everyone can see the screen, yeah?
Yes, Lucy, we can see it.
Yeah, brilliant. Ha, except me. Hang on.
You have a problem?
Yeah. I'll restart my my presentation. Hang on. And you know, in Lebanon at 6 p.m. sharp, we've got a power cut. I don't know if Martin has it or if any of the other Lebanese attendees experience that. Okay.
Hi, Lucy. Hi, everyone. I was cut as well. Hi. Happy to hear you.
So nicely.
Okay.
Many
Brilliant.
Perfect then.
Brilliant.
So we'll do your presentation then, and because of the power cut, maybe we leave some 5 minutes after your presentation for questions then.
All right. Okay. So all is good now. Thank you so much for having me this evening, part of this webinar series. I would like to thank ICUCH and also the Honor Trust Foundation, of course, for supporting a large part of academic and capacity building initiatives in Lebanon. So tonight I'm going to start. I gave a bit certain aspects of this talk yesterday in the NAES webinar. So if any of you attended yesterday, you might find this today a bit repetitive, but the focus will be more on the Honor Trust Foundation initiatives in the country. So what we're gonna look at this evening together is just a rapid introduction of the geographical context of the country, the historical background, as well as the nature of the resource and how this resource, the maritime archaeological resource, was studied through the years. So we're gonna have a look at the diachronic development of the discipline in Lebanon. There's a lot to say, so I will try to condense a very wide subject in the short time that we have. So this is roughly where Lebanon is in the Eastern Mediterranean, for those of you who are not familiar with the area. Okay, so Lebanon is largely, the terrain is slightly rectangular.
Sorry, I think we don't see your screen. Well, I don't know if it's my problem only, but I don't know if it's shared the screen.
Yes, I don't have to see, I don't seem to have a problem on my side.
Everybody's seeing her screen?
No, we don't see you. We don't see the screen.
No?
No. Can you try to reshare the screen?
Okay.
Now it seems.
How
okay.
about now?
Now it's working.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the previous slide, and it seems that the connection is really slow today. Yesterday it was functioning much better. So in the previous slide, I was just showing the Google Maps for those of you who need a bit of geographical reference. So we're talking about Lebanon, which is in the eastern Mediterranean basin. And roughly it's a rectangular terrain, so it shrinks from north to the south, and it's made of 4 physiogeographic areas. So you've got that run parallel to the Mediterranean Sea. You've got the coast, which is very, very narrow, and followed by the western mountain chain of Mount Lebanon. Then the Bekaa Valley, which is the central plateau, and then the anti-Lebanon, which separates Lebanon from Syria to the east. The continental shelf of Lebanon, so going westwards now towards the Mediterranean Sea, the continental shelf of Lebanon also reflects the terrestrial topography, because it is also wider to the north and it shrinks a bit to the south, and it drops quite dramatically at a depth of 1,000 to 1,200 meters of depth. And this bathymetry map was provided by the CNRS of Lebanon. The country is very much located in a seismic area, so there's a lot of vertical movements due to the tectonic activity, and this has caused, as you might imagine, a lot of vertical displacement and a lot of influence on the presence of the archaeological features on the coast. It is also a country that is very rich in water. We've got more than 15 rivers running throughout the country. These rivers do not have floodplains, so they run directly in deeply encased valleys, and they transport a lot of sediment along the way. This sediment accumulation, you can imagine that it influences coastal sites where the coast is quite low-lying. You've got examples here of Al-Mina in Tripoli in North Lebanon. You've got the examples of Sidon with its ridge and its northern and southern bays. And you've got the example, of course, of Tyre, which is also located in South Lebanon. These examples are quite indicative of what is happening, mostly of the landscape, as it were. If you would come and visit Lebanon, this is what you would see in terms of the maritime landscape. So you've got these headlands that protect bays north and south of them. So, according to where the wind is blowing from, you've got protected bays. Okay, right. Everyone is seeing the screen, yeah, so far?
Yes, affirmative.
Okay, brilliant. So Lebanon has, of course, this richness in natural resources, the closeness to the Mediterranean Sea, the richness in water, and so on. Eventually, encouraged the development of the different occupation and settlements. And Lebanon has been occupied about 1 million years ago, as is testified by this map. and by over 400 prehistoric sites, most of which, as you can see on the map, are located at the coast, and some of which have yielded artifacts such as fish hooks and fish bones and so on, which demonstrates this connection with the sea. So the Lebanese coast so far has, in some of the places, especially in Byblos, for example, has been occupied for over millennia, really. And so it presents, even though it's only on a narrow territory, Lebanon coast is only 220 kilometers. So within this modest coast, you've got a rich maritime archaeological record compared to other countries in the Mediterranean. Now, what is the nature of this resource? You've got coastal sites with unexplored maritime underwater cultural heritage potential. The reason why I divided this way is just to be able to convey to you the idea that there are coastal sites that were excavated on land first, and not all of these sites, if you want, have a study of had the study of their waters, their adjacent waters. So there are a lot of coastal sites that still need to be scientifically explored and studied. You've got archaeology that is lying underneath the urban mesh of certain sites on the coast, such as in Beirut and so on, in Tyre, in Sidon, etc. You've got, of course, harbor structures, the one in Byblos, in Tyre, in Sidon, just to name a few. There is a presence of shipwrecks that have been reported and that have been explored as well. There are a few studies on maritime quarry sites, such as in Byblos and in Anfe, and in Tripoli. And the river mouth also presents a wide potential for archaeological significance, that is. So now that we have an overview of the archaeological resource, so what kind of, let's discuss the early scholarly interest in the maritime archaeology in this archaeological record. And we go back to the 17th century when Lebanon was under Ottoman rule. However, French and European scholars were exercising a bit of soft politics, as it were, in the country by having ties mainly with the Maronite community of Lebanon. And this travel literature is very important because several travelers describe certain sites and certain aspects of the archaeology that nowadays is completely gone. So although many of these people, and I've listed a few here, Mondrel, Pocock, Renan, and Guérin, but of course there are plenty more, you have to know that this kind of literature is also a bit lacking information on underwater cultural heritage, evidently because at the time these people were not divers. However, I must note that Renan, among all these people, was perhaps the only one who spoke about sea level changes, about the erosion, the effects of erosion of the sea on coastal sites. He described several sites on the coast in Lebanon, but also in the mountains. And again, this travel literature of these scholars is quite important because it denotes the situation of the coastal heritage, at least at that time. Now, the early development really of underwater archaeology started with Antoine Poidbard, who initiated research in the country, of course, aided by the Aviation Française du Levant. At the time, Lebanon was under the French mandate for Syria and Lebanon. And these French cultural ties were reinforced. There was the creation of the Service des Antiquités by General Gouraud. And so with this, again, soft politics angle, as it were, Antoine Poidbard applied aerial photography to the study of harbors in Lebanon, such as the aerial view that you see here of the site of Byblos. Here you can see in North Lebanon, that is. Here you can see the site of Sidon with its islet, the Zire islet, that had been suggested already by Ernest Renan as being used as an offshore stopover as a outer harbor of Sidon, located to the north of the site. Poidbard notably as well studied and published a lot about Tyre. And what is special about his publication in Tyre is that he was able to chart submerged archaeological remains, because he used French divers, but also he relied on local divers, local sponge divers, that since he was not a diver himself, so he was using this type of information, the second-hand information, one must say, to document submerged features along the Lebanese coast. And it's really with Honor Frost, since the pioneer of maritime archaeology in Lebanon. She first came to the country in the 50s, at the end of the 50s, and she dived not only the star sites such as Byblos, Sidon, and Tyre, but also back then less known localities around the coastal strip of the country. As most of you know, her main interest was harbors, the harbors of Lebanon. Here you have the recording that she did of Ras Byblos. This is the Tel. This is the medieval harbor. So she recorded these features and many other features as well. Her main interest also was the anchors. And she published her main findings under the Mediterranean, but also in several other articles. Now, her work had to be stopped because of the civil war, really. But after the civil war, she returned to Lebanon and initiated a whole set of new research that we will see later on. During the Civil War, since that happened between 1975 and 1990, all foreign missions in Lebanon were halted, and it's only with local initiatives that underwater archaeology research in underwater archaeology was a bit pursued. So with Zareh Amadouni, who published several books, among which is the book Plongée archéologique sur le littoral libanais in French. He's not an archaeologist himself, but he is among the first diving instructors in Lebanon. He documented the underwater cultural heritage in North Lebanon mainly, at Tripoli, Kalamoun, Anfe, Here, and Byblos. So in some places, such as Tripoli, for example, as you can see to your right-hand side of the slide, no other work was done since then. So here is again the merit of Oniz contribution to underwater archaeology. Post-war, Honor Frost returned to the country, and there was a bit of revival of underwater archaeology in Lebanon, mainly through several geomorphological campaigns that happened in Byblos, in Tyre, and in Sidon, where scholars attempted, along collaborations between foreign and local scholars, aimed at defining the limits of ancient harbor basins, as well as the other type of studies that happened back then is the urban excavations that happened during the early 90s in the Beirut Central District. Probably some of you know that Beirut was completely destroyed during the Civil War. So after the Civil War, there was a large archaeological, probably the largest that happened in the Middle East, in an urban setting. And a few maritime installations such as this Hellenistic and Persian quay was unearthed under the urban layer in Beirut. And a third example of research in underwater archaeology back then, as you can see in these photos to the right of the slide, you've got underwater survey that happened while complementing terrestrial work, so work on land. This is the example of Tel Fadrous in North Lebanon. This is the example of Tyre and its so-called Southern Harbor, which was thought to be the Southern Harbor, but then Honor Frost proved that it was not. Remember, because she was able to observe these structures firsthand, while Antoine Poitbar and the others before him just relied on secondhand information. More recently, in the past decade or so, underwater archaeology really gained momentum during that time, with work that varied between excavations, either underwater or on land, as well as geophysical surveying. And these were mainly when these projects took place when the Honor Frost Foundation was established in 2011, and it opened its first round of grants in 2013. Now, I'm not going to go through this whole list, but please, you can make sure to have a look at these projects for the past 2 decades at the link here below. So at the Honor Frost Foundation page. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Honor Frost Foundation, it's a UK registered charity, and when Honor Frost died in 2010, she left the bulk of her estate to establish this foundation in order to promote maritime archaeology, specifically in the Eastern Mediterranean. So this foundation is led by a board of 6 trustees and a UK-based staff. And the main goal of the Honor Frost Foundation is to encourage research, education and training, capacity and resource building, management and protection of the resource, disseminating and publishing studies, and overall developing the discipline And these are done through either small grants or large grants, and you can visit the website for more details. So in terms of research, the nature of the research is either targeting coastal survey and excavations, underwater surveys and excavations, and anything that can develop the discipline and employ new technologies in underwater archaeology, and overall arriving to the development of the discipline that has more and more gained this momentum and became more inclusive of this idea of the seamlessness between land and sea. And the Honor Frost Foundation as well encourages a lot of local students to do their masters and their PhDs abroad, because so far we don't have such programs in Lebanon. It also offers bursaries to attend international meetings and conferences and workshops abroad. Locally, it has supported a lecture tour that I had the chance to participate in with Dr. Lucy Blue, to whom I express my deep gratitude for being really the force behind everything we do. I was able to go at Alexandria University. Thank you, Imad, for having me. It was one of the best experiences, really, teaching at the University of Alexandria. And since last year, HFF supported a minor course in marine sciences and culture. So far, this minor is open to AUB students. They can register for it either as an elective or as a minor per se. But also the Honor Frost Foundation has supported so far 6 scholarships in total for students from the Lebanese University, which is the public university in Lebanon, in order to attend this course at AUB, which is a private university. So for those of them who cannot afford the fees. In terms of capacity building, the HFF supported the attendance of 2 Lebanese conservators in the workshop that happened in Cyprus, along with our Cypriot colleagues. It supports archaeologists and students of archaeology who would like to get more hands-on experience in underwater archaeology. So it supports them in their diving training. So we train students and early career researchers, also as part of running projects from the long list that I had showed you earlier. The HFF also encourages field schools in maritime archaeology and ethnography, and it has funded a desk-based assessment of the maritime archaeological resource in Lebanon, which I had worked on back in 2015. In addition to all these activities that the HFF is undertaking in Lebanon, it has set a rescue archaeology response team at the request of the General Directorate of Antiquities. Back in 2018. And we did a lot of surveys and salvation surveys throughout the country, both in North and South Lebanon. The HFF also collaborated with the Yamina project and the Mar-Ea project. And we took the participants here to Batroun, a site in North Lebanon. As I mentioned, the HFF supported this capacity building initiative when Dr. Julian Jansen van Rensburg led an ethnographic field school that aimed at recording the tangible and intangible maritime heritage of the village of Anfi. So students were able to speak with the community of fishermen and learn about the tradition, and they were able to learn how to record anchors and traditional fishing boats and so on. With the collaboration of NAS, we organized two field schools where archaeology students were able to learn the basics of underwater archaeological recording and surveying. And some of the students, the ones that did not know how to dive, they also got an additional grant to learn how to dive beforehand. And last but not least, the HFF encouraged and supported the production of two documentaries about maritime archaeology and underwater archaeology. These are the Ain al-Mraisi Research Project and the Anfi Research Project. And you can have a look at these short educational documentaries at the links that I have provided here in the slide. So hopefully with all these capacity building initiatives, we can better preserve our underwater cultural heritage and better manage it for the future. Before I leave you, I would like to just present a quick slide about the bibliography of most of the sites that I had included in the slide, but also on the development of the discipline. And I hope you find these very useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lucy. That was a fantastic presentation. I think we all are astonished by the work that you and the Honor Frost Foundation have been doing. Not only Honor Frost herself was alive in order to develop underwater archaeology in the Eastern Mediterranean and in other parts in the Mediterranean too. But also, I mean, after with the foundations, I mean, how all these activities that the foundation is encouraging are developing not only capacities, but also research and also changing the mindset of governments in order to apply best standards. So thank you very much for your presentation. It's been fantastic. I remind all the viewers that you can make all the questions you want in the chat. Maybe we can have one space for one question now. I mean, they're asking if the slides will be shared somewhere. Don't know if, I mean, probably we can send it over. You have one question now, please put it forward. Otherwise, we move forward to the next presentation because, I mean, I think we have to finish the whole session by in the next 30 minutes. So please put your questions on the chat and I will be keeping an eye on them so we can have some 5–10 minutes later to reply to all questions. Thank you, Lucy. So now we pass to the next speaker, Dr. Hakan Oniz. He's associate professor from the Academic University in Antalya. He graduated in the Department of Art History and Archaeology at the Eastern Mediterranean University and did his master and PhD in underwater archaeology at Selçuk University of Konya in Turkey. He's one of the founders and one of the first coordinator of the UNESCO Unitwin Underwater Archaeology Network. He was coordinator between 2012 and 2015. Among many other things, he's the head of the Mediterranean Underwater Cultural Heritage Division at the Mediterranean Civilizations Research Institute at Danish University. He is also head of the Department of Restoration and Conservation of Cultural Heritage at the Faculty of Arts, and also director of Underwater Archaeology Research Center at the same university. He's been managing many different underwater archaeology research projects, and he is currently the secretary of the ICOMOS ICUCH committee. At the same time, he's a specialist member of ICOMOS Turkey, the National Committee of Underwater Cultural Heritage, member of UNESCO National Observation Committee for Underwater Archaeology, and member of Semaan Scientific Committee. Hakan, welcome. Thank you very much for being today with us. He's going to be speaking about how do we preserve underwater cultural heritage in touristic regions. The screen is yours, Hakan.
Thank you very much, Arturo. It is a very nice beginning. Actually, I have an objection to the secretary of ICUCH and also the moderator of the program. Why? Because I'm talking just after a beautiful girl who speaks very nice, very English and a very nice Francophone. And having some words after her, it will be very difficult for me.
You will do fine. Just speak slowly, and I'm sure you will do fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much again. And yes, Lucy, your presentation was very nice, and we have learned very important things. Okay, my presentation is on how do we preserve an underwater cultural heritage in touristical regions. This subject is also part of my article in our new book. As you know, ICUCH has a new book now named Protection of Underwater Heritage. Okay, a very short text that I'm also going to read it. Major part of modern life has become increasingly entwined with the sea, but this greater connectivity has become a source of wide variety of problems that are having an important impact on it, included underwater culture. This problem and cultural heritage in numerous ways, either directly or indirectly. These effects are more obvious in touristical sites and their environs built on the shores of oceans, seas, lakes, and rivers. By the way, do you see my presentation?
Yes, we see it. We see it.
Okay, perfect. As a result of tourism and population growth, expanding city infrastructure and associated industrialization has created factors that put more pressure on the ocean, lakes, and rivers. As a consequence of this pressure, described that many archaeological remains lying under coastal waters or on shores are now gone worldwide. Okay, I'm giving some example from the coast of Turkey, because as you know, this coastline is about 1,000 kilometers coastline and are under of our responsibility. The coastline that we are working is exactly almost all part is the touristical size. We have thousands, 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars hotels at the coastline and many other touristical infrastructure already settled. From 2010 to 2020, we have found more than 300 shipwrecks in these coastlines. And almost 90% of the shipwrecks are very close to the coastline. It's not the open water, it's just about 30, 40, 50 meters far from the coastline. Okay, for example, at the coast of Antalya, last year, we have found 42 wrecks, mainly the Roman wrecks, but we have found also the Iron Age wrecks and Ottoman wrecks, such as this wreck. Okay, and at the Mersin coastline, we have found 12 wrecks. They are mainly 4th or 5th century AD wrecks. And the cargo of the wrecks are mainly amphora or plates. We have several excavations at the coastline, and all the excavations are just, sorry, 2 of the excavations are just 50, 60 meters far from the coastline, and 1 of them is on the touristical seaway. For example, this shipwreck is 11th century tableware shipwrecks, and we have already collected about 200 full part of the plates from the wreck. It is carried out by Akdeniz University, Antalya Museum, and 9 September in 9 Eylül University. Another excavation of us is another Ottoman trade wreck, and the main cargo of the wreck is bronze and copper kitchenwares. And we have already collected many remains, and they are at Alanya Museum waiting for restoration and conservation process. And another excavation of us is again just 30, 40 meters far from the coastline. is Bronze Age copper shipwreck. We are working on this shipwreck with Antalya Museum, as Akdeniz University, and INA. And this is probably the oldest trade wreck of the world. Okay, let's talk on the subject again. You see a sunken site. This is, as you said, this is just connected to the coastline. And the main deep of the site is just 1 to 3 meters. We know this place because here is a touristical site. The name of the site is Kekova. And here is in the protection area of the Antalya region. Another example at the coastline construction is at the Mersin, east part of the Turkish Mediterranean. On an island named Dana Island, we have about 300 rock cut slipways, and some part of the slipways are covered by the seawater, and some part are on the coastline. Okay, another examples are coming from different part of Turkey. In Marmara Sea, very close to Istanbul, there is another island named Avşa Island. And just the coastline of the Avşa Island, there are some late Neolithic and Bronze Age settlements in the water, covered by the seawater. But of course, these are under the water in this moment, just because of Holocene sea level rising. Another example at Dardanel, very close to Çanakkale, at the north part of Turkey. There is another Neolithic site, partly submerged and partly on the coastline. Another example is coming from Istanbul at Beylikdüzü. The site is, name of the site is Angurina, and some part of the site is already covered by the seawater just because of the erosion of the seawater and the wind. And some part is under the vegetation or under the earth. As you see, there are many sunken or partly sunken sites, not only the shipwrecks, but archaeological sites, mainly Neolithic or Bronze Age coastal sites of Turkish coast, is partly or completely covered by the seawater in this moment because of sea level rising or because of earthquakes. And of course, shipwrecks are also our subject. Okay, this example is coming from Monaco. In 1955, the place was just a very beautiful beach, but about 44 years later, this place is filled and in touristical site and harbor is built on the filling site. These are very new, famous man-made islands at Dubai. 2001, there were no island, but 2019, we see islands on the water. Another one is Dalyan. As you see, there are very big construction on the sea, but at past, you couldn't see any construction. The question is, before the filling, I'm wondering that did really checked on the water cultural heritage at the coastline or not? This is an important question mark. And unfortunately, many of the countries, even if they are poor countries or rich and modern countries, it doesn't matter. In this moment, they are almost equal. The men of the government do not start to underwater archaeology survey before the constructions, before the filling the sites. Okay, not only the coastal feelings, but other affections on touristical sites. For example, harbor deepenings. There are many harbors are cleaning because of the natural feeling to the harbors. But of course, when they are cleaning, they don't check to underwater archaeological objects. Another one is the pipeline constructions. You know, there are a lot of different type of pipeline constructions, not only natural gas or petrol, but also the water. They are excavating to the deep with some special jet sleds. But of course, no one as underwater archaeology or who has some idea on underwater archaeology working with jet sleds during the construction works. And it means that thousands of kilometers pipeline constructions, unfortunately, couldn't check from the angle of archaeology. And don't think that these pipelines are very tiny, very small. There are many heavy part of the pipeline constructions already settled or settling the deep of the sea. And another one is also related to tourism infrastructure. These kind of constructions are happening everywhere of the world. Of course, the fishing is a human need, but this is also part of the tourism. You know, these traveling methods are using almost everywhere. There are some regulations against the traveling, but unfortunately, we couldn't check probably enough. And we know that none of the fishermen crew did check the deep before the traveling methods. It means that we are destroying every year hundreds shipwrecks in the deep everywhere of the world. And the sea accidents, you know, we have some special places like ship traps. If a ship sunk because of this ship trap, unfeasible rocks on the coastline 2,000 years ago, same ship trap also affect another ship 1,000 years later. And this process is happening many times, repeating many times. And when we find a modern shipwreck in Turkey, definitely we found another at least one or two ancient shipwrecks under of the modern wreck during this kind of places. Another important factor which destroys the underwater cultural heritage is the anchoring. You know, the captains never look to the deep when they sent their anchor. And of course, if a captain during the storm wish to escape some shelter when they go from somewhere to another place, these places also have been used by another captain 1,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. And some of the wrecks, some of the ships already sunk at the same places. And now we are destroying with very heavy anchors present times. And tourism divers on the wrecks. These are just some of the factors which are related to the tourism and underwater cultural heritage. And divers also another factor. Of course, I am not saying that all divers are creating some dangers on the wrecks. I know at least 90% of them are very respectful to protection of underwater cultural heritage. But what about 10%? This is important. And unfortunately, some of the divers, even they are tourists or not, are consciously or unconsciously destroying to the archaeological objects when they dive to the water. Possible solutions, of course, education, awareness, law and regulations. Okay, when we are talking on the education, of course, as you know, we have established UNESCO Underwater Archaeology Network, And we are organizing underwater archaeology workshops for the government's officers. And we did twice in Turkey. And other part of the world, there are also several workshops on the subjects, included Africa or Asia. In Turkey, actually, I'm very proud to say that since 1880s, during the Ottoman period, the law, which is written by Osman Hamdi Bey, is also the establisher, founder of the Turkish Istanbul Museum. They added protection regulations for underwater cultural heritage at the border of the Ottoman Empire. And same regulations also transferred to Turkish protection regulations. But still now, not only in Turkey, but the many of the other countries need to protect in the to the underwater cultural heritage in the legal frame. I know, and as many of you already know, that unfortunately many countries, included the rich and big countries, didn't protect the underwater cultural heritage enough, and the awareness also necessary for the governmental officers. And this one is actually one of our programs, which it happened at Paris in the center of UNESCO related to underwater cultural heritage programs in Turkey. Okay, when we start to talk on awareness, we also have to start with the children. We are organizing children awareness program in Turkey every year in the frame of International Kemer Underwater Days. And when we talk on the protection, actually, we have to start from the diving instructors. And we wrote a book on the subject named Protection of Underwater Cultural Heritage. And in Turkey now, I can say that all 2-star divers have to take a course on how to protect underwater cultural heritage from their diving instructors. This is a must for all 2-star divers, and we are educate to diving instructors in Turkey. Until now, 400 CIMAS diving instructors already have this training program. And now this training program in a form reflect the CIMAS. We are working on the subject with EMAD and our other colleagues from UNESCO Unity in Underwater Archaeology Network. And the protection approaches already reflect the CIMAS Scientific Committee. We are working on the subject to CIMAS. Okay, it is widely recognized that underwater cultural archaeological values are beneath the surface of seas and lakes, and these are all fragile, and these are all have to protect, and these are all have to come until the future generations. Okay, this is the end of my presentations, and thanks to all who listen us.
Thank you very much, Hakan, for also a fantastic presentation with all the activities that you are doing in Turkey and all the different challenges that tourism is posing to heritage preservation. I will start maybe the 5-6 minutes time for questions that we had by asking you, Hakan, one question, especially regarding, this period of pandemic that we are having. Obviously, tourism has decreased in probably all the world, all the planet. So from one side, how this has affected the tourism industry, meaning also how investing on heritage, visits to sites, etc., if that existed. And on the other side, how this has somehow prevented damage from happening during the last year, specifically in Turkey. I don't know if you had some information on that, if you managed to do some surveys or some fieldwork in the last summer, or if you can tell us a bit, reflect on that mainly.
Actually, during the last summer, it was the high season also for pandemic. We have actually catch the opportunity from the crisis. And, you know, we have a ship and our crew is about 18. By our ship, we just go to the Turkish coastline for underwater surveys, and only one in a week approach the coastline, and we created our own protection. And this is actually very beneficial for us. This is why we have found many shipwrecks than the usual time. And from other sides, the pandemic also affected tourism, and it means that less tourists and probably more clean waters in Turkey, and visibility also was very good.
Thank you, Hakan. So now we open for questions. I mean, if people have any questions, you can raise their hands or put it on the chat. Anybody? I'm looking attentively the chat. Doesn't look like.
I have sent on the chat the links to the documentaries and to the Lebanon project on the HF.
Thank you. So everybody can see the links on the chat. Someone raised their hands. Richard, Andriana Balamo Hefa.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So, thanks for the presentation. I come from Madagascar. And I have a question for about the second presentation. Yeah. So my question is, what are practical strategies to involve local communities of developing country to protect shipwrecks, knowing that there are no material and financial resources?
Okay, thank you very much. And it is very important and very nice question, Richard. In this way, we are collaborating with the Turkish Underwater Sports Federation. And the president of our Turkish Underwater Federations are all academicians, and they are very aware to the necessity of the protection of underwater cultural heritage. You know, Turkey has about 8,500 kilometers coastline, and almost all the coastline is full of the archaeological objects needs to protection. And the first, we need to go and convince them. Actually, we didn't force ourselves to convince, because they already convinced on the subject. They understood the necessities. And then we went to Ministry of Culture, and they are also very open and understood the reason why to protect for underwater cultural heritage. And after the convincing to the Minister of Culture and the Federation of Underwater Sports at Turkey, we just collaborated with UNESCO. We have a very nice friend in UNESCO, Dr. Ulrike Garan. She already also wrote a foreword of the book. Then with about 11 professors on underwater cultural heritage, wrote the book, and one sponsor print all the book, and then we could have chance to give all the books without any fee. And in the program of Turkish Underwater Federation, we are training to diving instructors free of charge, and diving instructors also train their students free of charge. Turkish federations also give their certification free of charge. So everything is actually very nice, and the people understood the necessities. And moreover, Turkish regulations, there are some rules. If you find some objects, for example, you mustn't touch them, and you have to inform in 3 days to the government. Otherwise, it will be something like crime. And then because of this, we also have more information from the divers, because divers start to give some information on underwater archaeological sites to government and also to us, then first we already create the awareness or creating the awareness, and then we also start the collection of the information. So this is actually, after the convincing of several governmental institutions, it works perfectly. Is it enough answer for your question, Richard?
Yes. And can I ask a second question, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. And how to push or how to create a lobby for endangered underwater heritage and to achieve legislation at political and state level, for example, National Assembly or ministries, with a few means that we have.
Thank you. Actually, in Turkey, we don't force ourselves on the subject. It is actually kind of tradition. We are protecting underwater cultural heritage since about 230 years by the regulations, by the law. And when we go to any governmental institutions, the door were always open to us. I mean, we don't force ourselves, but it is not just because of us, it is just because of the tradition of the protection of the country. So it needs some time, slowly. The first, of course, you have to fund your institutions. It is our chance that we have a department in university, we have a division in university, you have a research center in the university, you have an academic career. So the academic career is also very important, you know. If you are not archaeologists, I mean, if you are just diver or if you are engineer, for example, convincing the people is quite hard. But if you already educate the subject, I mean, if you educate the person on underwater culture or cultural heritage, so it means that you have already a background. With your background, when you go to the governmental institution, all things will be quite easy for you and for all the people. So the education is also a very important factor on the subject.
Thank you, Hakan. I think we have one last question and we put an end to today's session. So there's a question in the chat for Hakan too. Do you know something about the new cruise port of Turkey? Have they found something there, and does the marine traffic in the area affect any potential underwater heritage?
Actually, I understood the question, but I didn't understand. The new cruise port of Turkey. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Sorry to butt in. Hi, thank you for your presentation. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm asking this because I come from the cruise line industry, and I have been recently to a cruise trade in Miami, and they are advertising this cruise port in Turkey. I don't remember offhand where it is, but I believe it falls under the criteria where you are speaking about. I'm not sure though. But anyway, my concern is about the cruise lines, of course. How can they protect underwater heritage, especially when it comes to cruise line and destination planning?
Actually, you know, Rachel, Turkey has 8,500 kilometers coastlines, and we have thousands ports, new cruise port. I actually know about 6-7 different cruise ports, and is in Istanbul or some other cities? Do you have any idea?
I'm not sure, but they're planning something close. I'm sorry, I have to look this up actually.
Actually, you can easily find my email address and you can ask and I can give all information. As I said, if I understood the correct site, and I can give the correct answer to you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Rachel.
So any of the questions can be also sent. You can go to the ICUCH website. You can send it by email to Dr. Hakan or to the email that you can see there. And we can try to forward the emails to the different speakers too. So if there is not any other urgent question, no one is raising the hand. So there is one new message. Okay, no, thanks. Okay, people are very happy with all the presentations. So I thank you both, Lucy and Hakan, for these fantastic presentations. I think it's been a great start for the webinar chain of ICUCH this year. I recall everybody that you can follow all the news of ICUCH in our Facebook page and our Twitter page. I invite you to follow them there. You see the announcements for the next webinars that will be happening during the next months there, and all the different events. So the next webinar will be on February 18th at the same time. And it will be in charge Marc-André Vernier, and it will be on shipwrecks in Arctic environments. So I thank you all for being here, all the over 100 viewers that we've been having, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week, next month. Thank you.
And may I say something?
Yes, of course.
If you have a common webinar with Lucy, I will be first, and Lucy will be second, because when I speak after Lucy, I will be more boring. And thank you very much again for all people.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
This webinar is perfect. And thank you, Lucy, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucy. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Okay. Have a good day. Good time.
Have a nice rest of the day, everybody.
Hope you enjoyed the talk. Bye.
Bye. Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.